So I was meaning to do this video before the 7a released, but anywho guys, let's talk about my experience with the Pixel 6a as an Apple fanboy. I say fanboy in quotations because whilst I have been exclusively using iPhones as my main device for the last 4 to 5 years, before that I was actually on Team Android and specifically using Samsung devices, and so I do have a good idea of how Android works, but this obviously is my first time trying the Pixel experience, especially as my main device. And why did I get the 6a compared to other Pixels? Well, frankly speaking, this was the cheapest Pixel I could get. It's less than $200 nowadays. But also, similar to iPhones, I did notice that most Pixels generally offer the same core experience, and so that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. And by the way, would like to remind you guys, like this video and subscribe for more content like this, it would be appreciated. Let's first begin with the negatives during my time with the 6a, and there's not that many surprisingly, but right at the top of my list of things I had issues with is the fingerprint scanner on this, and generally the lack of 3D face unlock on Android devices. So the 6a here has an optical in-display scanner similar to many Android phones on the market, but unfortunately the one here is absolutely horrible, guys. It really has a mind of its own because sometimes it works flawlessly, but other times it's a pain to use and I eventually just put my pin in like I'm back in 2010. And yes, before you ask, I did register the same fingerprint multiple times on the device, and yeah, I was still having issues, so yeah, the fingerprint scan on this is an absolute mess. Now there is a fix for this, sort of, with a feature called Smart Lock. This basically keeps a device unlocked when it's in a trusted location, so considering I'm mostly at home anyways, this feature in theory would be clutch, but unfortunately this was a little buggy. Even though I was at home, the phone would still ask me for a fingerprint, and so yes, on the whole guys, the biometrics are horrible on this phone. By the way, I'm aware the Pixel 7 series allegedly has a better fingerprint scanner, but I've heard from friends that they also face issues with the scanners on those devices. Now the Galaxy S20 FE I have has a much better fingerprint scanner, so this really only seems to apply to Pixels. And unfortunately for me, unlike the Pixel 7 series, the 6a has no option for face unlock. A lot of Android phones offer this, and yeah, it's surprising because many Android phones offer 2D face unlock at the very least, but no, this does not even have that option. And that does bring me to the fact there is no equivalent for Face ID on Android. I believe Huawei did offer 3D face unlock on some of their devices, but of course they were forced to leave most international markets, and so amongst the Android phones widely available now, no one really offers this, and it's a shame to be honest. Yes, generally these in-display scanners aren't too bad, but occasionally when my hands are wet, it becomes kinda annoying trying to fiddle with a fingerprint scanner, and so yes, Face ID is far superior for a smartphone, and I'm hoping more companies adopt this. Of course, I'm not claiming Face ID is perfect. There are occasionally issues like most tech on the planet, but it's far more reliable than what Android offers, and so yeah, there should be improvements to biometrics on Pixels, since it's a key part of the experience. The next issue I want to mention is the app quality on Android. So whilst Google has perfected the UI and animations, which I'll get to, I have noticed apps are generally worse here compared to iOS. The main two apps that have been troubling are Twitter and, surprisingly, the YouTube Studio app. So I know Twitter on iOS is not perfect in itself, but it's miles better than the mess it is on Android. I often refresh my feed on the Android app and nothing new loads, and I also play videos that clearly have audio but I hear nothing, and yeah, on the whole guys, there is a lack of polish. As for the YouTube Studio app, there is some really janky animations, and it's pretty weird. Google's native application feels worse on their own platform, but that is the reality guys. And it's a real shame because I think Google's done a great job with Android 13, but the app quality does slightly ruin the experience. Though I do want to emphasize my use of slightly because I'm not going to pretend like this is a massive deal breaker, because at the end of the day guys, I could live with these slightly less optimized apps. And that's about it for the negatives guys. As I said, I really did like my time with the 6a, so let's now get into my favorite parts of the Pixel experience. The first thing is the design, because it's frankly refreshing for me as an iPhone user to have a design that actually looks different, because as everyone knows, phones don't change that much anymore on a yearly basis, and so I've had the same flat chassis for 3 years, and going back to a more rounded design on the Pixel was refreshing, but also I did not mind the smaller size. And aesthetically speaking, I think the Pixel has more character because I prefer the visor design Google has. It's unique, it stands out. I also like the contrast with the black rails and the white back of the device. It does remind me of the Pixel 2 XL CS guys. I love the design. And I'm just glad Google's finally found their identity, because for quite some time now Pixels looked very bland and mixed in with the plethora of Android devices on the market. But thankfully that's no longer the case. Both the 6 and the 7 stand out. The next thing I want to mention is the UI and the animations. Clearly Google has put a lot of effort into this, because despite this being 60Hz, this actually feels more fluid than most 120Hz devices. It just feels really fun interacting with this device, and the attention to detail with the UI is really quite appreciated. The wallpapers that Google also natively offers are fantastic, guys. And I also like the fact the UI can be completely themed around the wallpapers. And yeah, this is a super clean interface. Now the next aspect is of course the Pixel smarts this phone offers that absolutely floored me. The first thing is of course the camera experience here, and specifically the real tone feature, because as someone with a darker complexion, there are times where the iPhone completely messes up my skin tones. And so using a device that so correctly portrays my skin tones was pretty impressive. Not only this, but the more saturated Pixel colors does look more pleasing in my opinion, and also night sight on this is surprisingly on par with the 14 Pro Max, which is amazing considering the 6A has a much smaller sensor. But yes, I finally do understand the hype, guys. The cameras on these Pixels are excellent. Not only that, but the super rare zoom absolutely blew me away, because this does not have a telephoto, yet the 2x zoom this offers is actually very good, and is pretty much as good as a dedicated telephoto. So yeah, this is all down to the computational magic Google offers. They can't be matched in this aspect. Of course, the video quality is still nowhere near the iPhone, so that's probably one part Google should focus on for future models. And on the whole, guys, I was very happy with the camera experience. It's kinda crazy the camera is this good when the device is less than $200 nowadays. And another thing that mildly impressed me was Magic Eraser. I say mildly because whilst the Pixel ads do suggest this works like magic, that's actually not always the case. There's times where yes, the feature does work, but there's also cases where this really does not happen. The end result ends up being a complete mess. So I'm hoping they can work on this with future software updates. Another small thing I appreciated was Now Playing. When I'm occasionally outside in a restaurant, for example, and there's a song in the background that does catch my interest, I no longer need to awkwardly hum the song to my phone and try and find it via Shazam. Instead, the Pixel does it for me and just has a history of songs it's listening out for. Now yes, I know there could be privacy concerns, but honestly I can live with the fact this listens to everything if it offers back some convenience. And talking about convenience, whilst I have not tested this because it's not available in the UK, automatic call screening sounds so clutch on paper, because essentially this sounds like having your own assistant, answering your calls and checking if they're spam or not. And yeah, this just sounds so perfect. Please bring this to other countries. Finally, I do want to mention two smaller features. The first thing is Quick Tap, which allows you to tap the back of the device as a shortcut to open or do something. So for example, I have this enabled for screenshots, and yeah, this actually works 90% of the time. And I know there is an iOS accessibility feature, but it's not as reliable as this. So yeah, I did appreciate having this on the Pixel. Also, as someone who scripts these videos, voice typing on this has occasionally come in handy. This lets me type my scripts using my voice, and dictation here works way better than it does on iOS. So yes, when I'm too lazy to type out a script, I use this instead, and it works really well. So these are the things that stood out to me with the 6A, and if you're wondering about things like battery life, the display, the performance of speakers, aka the boring stuff, there are tons of videos out there regarding this, plus I had no issues with those aspects as well. I just wanted to focus on the general Pixel features that impressed me as an iOS user, and so yes, if I wasn't so reliant on the Apple ecosystem features, like AirDrop and AirPlay for example, I could see myself using this long term and using this for a year or two, because the transition to Android surprisingly was not that bad, and I use WhatsApp anyways, I don't need iMessage. And so yes, for iPhone users, wanting to try Androids, these really feel like the iPhones of the Android world. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.